Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Hopefully everyone had a nice early morning conversation, was able to share out a little bit on yesterday. I'm going to provide an introduction here to Robert Curtin. You'll see Robert here. Robert Curtin is the Director of Education Data Services in the Center for School and District Accountability at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. During his 13 years with the department, Rob has overseen the development and rollout of its major data initiatives and been a lead developer of the district and school accountability system. Rob also serves on the General Statistics Permanent Standing Task Force that advises the U.S. Department of Education on data collection and analysis issues, and is a member of the Management Board of the School's Interoperability Framework Association. My summary is that Rob knows all things data in Massachusetts. If you have any questions on your research projects, well, you probably should come to us, but then we'll relay them to Rob, and he'll get an answer for you. Rob, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. As Chad said, my name is Rob Curtin, and I wear two hats at the department. One is I direct the Education Data Services Unit, and the other is I direct the Center for School and District Accountability. So I'm here today with the Education Data Services hat on. So what we're going to talk about today is our availability of data at the department. We have been collecting data for many, many years, and we make much of it available at various different levels to our constituents, and we're here today to talk about what data are available both to districts and to researchers. So I'm going to run through a data inventory. I'm not sure I don't know all of you in here, so some of this might be a bit of a review for people in the audience, but we're going to run through a data inventory of what we have for student level and educator level data. Also talking about what data we have about assessment. We're going to take a look at DART. For those of you that don't know what that is, I'm actually going to switch over. Technology be damned. I'm going to try to go over through the website and actually show you DART. And then we'll talk about Edwin Analytics, which is a secure access that we've set up to data for our districts. And then we have actually made a research guide for researchers about our data. I've brought copies for everybody. So we'll talk about that and everybody can have one. Hopefully I'll have enough. If not, I can get some more. But then we'll conclude with plenty of time for questions and answers, and I'll try, Chad, to get us back on schedule a little bit here. So basically, there are 4 major collections of data at the department. And then there are several others where I can consider them to be secondary collections. But in general, there are 4 major collections. The first is what the most popular and the oldest. It is SIMS. It is the Student Information Management System, and it collects about 50 different variables on all publicly funded students in the Commonwealth. Okay? That ranges from all the different types of directory information that you can think of to demographics, and to whether, special populations, whether or not the special education, low income, LEP, for example, okay? When I say all publicly funded, I mean all students that are in our public schools, all students that are outplaced to a collaborative, for example, so all publicly funded students. Once we have all of the student information, what students are in our schools, the second major collection is the student course schedule. That is for all publicly funded students. We collect the courses. Basically, we collect just as it says, the schedule of courses that they're taking down to the section level. So we collect, if I'm Rob Curtin and I'm a 10th grader at Malden High School, and I might be taking an English, a math, a science, and a history, for example, we get one record for each one of those classes down to the section level. The third major collection, and I'm going to make the point here about triangulation. The 3 are triangulated. That's the Educator Personnel Information Management System, EPIMS. And that is for all of our educators in the Commonwealth. We collect 2 different sets of data on them. One we call the staff roster. That is basically what are all the directory information, what's their education background. That's where the educator evaluation ratings live. And then we collect their work assignment. So what do they teach? If you think about the student course schedule as the schedule for all the kids, the EPIMS work assignment record is basically the schedule for all of the educators in the Commonwealth. Okay? What this allows us to do is to triangulate these three collections where we basically can recreate the classroom setting at any point in each of our schools in the Commonwealth, so that we can actually put the 25 students that are in front of Mrs. Jones in Algebra 1, Section 1 at Malden High School. Okay? It allows us to create the classrooms. It has allowed us to take the next step in our analyses around looking at data related to educators and looking at student achievement by educators. But these three collections are the core of our data collection system. Teachers, the courses they teach, students, the courses they take, all triangulated together to basically recreate what the classrooms look like in our Commonwealth. The fourth collection, fourth major collection that we do is the School Safety and Discipline Report. Okay? This is an incident level collection on all of our students, whatever incidents of any discipline that rises to the level of an in-school or an out-of-school suspension. We do not collect incident-level data on something that only results in detention, for example. But anything that relates to an in-school or an out-of-school suspension, we have an incident-level record. And when I say incident-level record, I mean what was the offense? What was the offense? What was the discipline that was given for the offense? How many? When did that offense happen? When did the suspension happen? And how long was the suspension for? Okay? So those four collections, really what I refer to as our core collections. We collect them from all districts in the Commonwealth. SIMS is collected 3 times a year. The student course schedule and the educated personnel information management system are collected 2 times a year, and the school safety discipline report is collected once cumulatively at the end of the year. Okay? So those are the 4 major collections. Germane to what you're all talking about today in these last couple of days, all of these we also have a contract with the National Student Clearinghouse, okay, where we provide them a list of all of our students, both graduates and non-graduates, and they provide back to us the post-secondary enrollment records for all the students from Massachusetts. Okay? So we have that data going back for the last 8 years, and we basically get an enrollment record per semester for every student. The key here is everything is linked up through our SACID. That's our unique identifier. So we are able to connect, if you think about it from a pipeline perspective, we are now able to look at the courses a student took with the teachers they had all the way through high school, and then what happened, what was their post-secondary enrollment status. Okay? All connected through the status, all connected through the SACID, and we have brought the data together in Edwin Analytics, which I'll get to in a moment, and we'll talk about that. And that's really the analysis engine that we're using now at the department. And we'll talk about that in 1 minute. DART. DART is. How many people are familiar with DART? DART has become quite popular. Great. So if we have time to go back and look at DART, the data analysis and research tools, I will go back and look at. I'll actually go on the web and show you to in a second. Once we get through the remainder of the presentation. But the other one that I did want to highlight for you is the early warning indicator system. This has become quite popular with researchers. And we're just starting to be able to provide this data to researchers. But we became, 3 years ago, became the first state in the country to develop an early warning system for grades 1 through 12. There are plenty of early warning systems out there that were focused on generally middle school and high school, but we actually developed one with the help of AIR to develop a grade 1 through 12 early warning system that sets benchmarks at grades 3, 6, 9, and the completion of high school, so that all of our students in districts have access to the risk levels of all students from grades 1 through 12 as to whether or not they're at risk of not meeting the next benchmark that they're going to face. So that in about 5 minutes is a history of 13 years of collecting data on our part. But we're going to, that's generally what we have on all of our students. Okay? Let's talk for a second about assessment data. What assessment data do we have on a subset of our students? Okay? So obviously we have student level MCAS results through all of our tested grades. We have student level SAT results through a contract that we have to be able to get those. And again, all of this stuff is connected back to our SACID, so we can connect any of this data back to any other data that we have. We have AP exam scores. And then we have English language proficiency assessment results, whether that was the MIPA up until a couple years ago, and now access for ELLs. Okay, so from an assessment perspective, this is kind of our inventory of assessment data. And obviously, we are embarking, and we are in the first year of a 2-year test drive about PARC. So we will have about 60, for grades 3 through 8, about 60% of our schools are taking PARC this year for grades 3 through 8. And we will have PARC data for them at least for 1 year before the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education makes a decision about whether to move forward with PARC on a statewide assessment. Grade 10 will continue to take MCAS through the class of 2019 as of right now. So we are going to have at least 2 assessments running if we move to PARC for a while. But we are, so this is sort of the assessment component that we have right now. This is a little small, but I do want to take you through the availability of all the data that we have, because we make data available at a lot of different levels. So my theory of action around making data public is that if we have it, and we have enough of it not to violate confidentiality laws, we make it public. Okay? So this is a look at our school and district profiles page. And on the left, and it's a little small, but you'll see here on the left-hand side, those are all different reports. Accountability, advanced placement participation, advanced placement performance. And you'll see all the way up and down here are all different types of reports that you can click on there, and it brings up the report for all schools and districts, and up in the right-hand corner is the export button. So all of these data are downloadable to the public to be able to, and they all, when you download it, it comes out with a school and district code, so you can link the data, for example. So this is what's available to the public. We make as much data as we possibly can available to the public. Okay, and this is all there. And a lot of this data goes back to 2002, 2003 range. Okay. However, we realize that aggregate level data is not necessarily sufficient either for researchers or for our district friends. They need finer data to be able to conduct analyses and to answer more specific questions. So in the last couple of years, we have embarked upon the introduction of Edwin. How many people have heard of Edwin? Great. That's music to my ears. Edwin is not an acronym. Edwin is actually a person for those, and he has a Twitter account for anybody that's interested in following him. And he has his own email address also. But what Edwin is we have basically consolidated all of our analytical tools into one place. When you're talking about data down to the student level, we've basically put it all into Edwin Analytics. And it is a role-based system. Okay? So districts are completely in charge of who has access to Edwin Analytics. We do not provide data to anybody outside of our agency. We do not provide access to Edwin Analytics to anybody outside of our agency. Districts control that function. Okay? And if you can see up the top, you'll actually see that there are levels of access here. This is my account, so I have access to just about everything. And you'll see that this is, you can have just district level access. For example, a district might decide we only want this person to have access to district level data. Then there's school level, then you can have all the way down to the student, staff, and classroom level when you can start looking at teacher level information. So districts have access to Edwin Analytics free of charge. Okay? It's not to be confused with the other half of Edwin, which is Edwin Teaching and Learning, which is our instructional management system, our instructional improvement system, some people think of it as. Okay, that's a curriculum-based tool. It's really a classroom management tool. That has a charge to it. Okay? This is Edwin Analytics. This is free of charge to all school districts. And this is, for example, where the early warning indicator system lives. This is where all of our assessment reports live. This is where all of our educator reports live. And this is available, again, to all districts free of charge. I do want to highlight for you, germane to what we're talking about today, the post-secondary readiness and success reports that are available in Edwin Analytics. Okay? And this is really just the beginning of what we'll be able to do. We're working on some additional post-secondary reports, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of what's available now. So what we have done is we've basically created 3 reports, but it's really one big report broken out into 3 little reports. Okay? So hopefully people can see this. So what we're able to do is look at, for example, the number of high school graduates in a school or a district. Okay? How many of those, very simply answering the question, how many enrolled in post-secondary education within 16 months of graduating? Okay, 16 months is generally the standard time that we use, and that's also how the federal government collects their data also around post-secondary enrollment. The reason for that is 16 months, if you think about it, is it allows the student to take 1 full year off and then 1 semester off of the following year. Okay, so what percentage of students enroll in post-secondary education within 16 months? At the school level, at the district level, at the state level? Okay, we have a section on persistence. How many students persisted? Of those that enrolled, how many persisted at any institution? How many persisted at the same institution? Okay. We then can tell you where they enrolled. Of the students that enrolled in post-secondary education, we can tell you exactly where it was that they enrolled. Okay. We are actually moving forward with, just on the enrollment piece for the National Student Clearinghouse, we're going to move forward with enabling student-level access to this so that you can actually see, just from the enrollment piece now, who the 45 students that enrolled at Bunker Hill Community College were. Okay, we're going to enable that for school districts soon. Okay, so you can see across the country where did they, and the National Student Clearinghouse, for those that aren't familiar, have about 97% of institutions in the U.S. So it's pretty, it's a pretty big data set. Okay, then we can start to look at, we've created reports for districts to be able to look at some success measures and base on academic preparation back into high school. So of those that enrolled in Massachusetts public post-secondary education, how many completed MICCR? Okay. How many completed AP courses? Okay. It's important to note here that of the difference between the data sets. So we have a data set that tells us where students enrolled in post-secondary education. That is from the National Student Clearinghouse. Our friends at the Department of Higher Education, represented up here, but Jonathan Keller's up in the audience. Okay? We've gone through a series of work with them to be able to connect our data to their database. So beyond looking at just enrollment, for our students that enroll in Massachusetts public post-secondary information, we can get an even richer data set. Okay? Now, we are not Michigan. We are not Texas, where an inordinate amount of our students enroll in public post-secondary education. Okay? But we still have a good sizable number that do, and we are able to get a richer amount of data on those students. So for example, on the students that enrolled in public post-secondary education, we're able to tell districts how many students enrolled in a remedial course. How many students enrolled in more than one remedial course? Okay? And in math and reading and writing, these are different types of reports that we provide back to districts about the academic preparation of students. Now, these data here about what students received remedial education are not available at the student level. We have been talking to our friends at the Department of Higher Education about being able to provide that data to you, but we have not been able to come to agreement yet on that. So I can tell you from an ESE perspective where students enroll, But the data about remedial education, which is always one of the biggest questions we get, and how many kids are in remedial education and what kids those are, we're not able to provide that to you at the student level yet. We're still working on trying to come to an agreement with our friends at DHE on that. Okay, so if we think about moving beyond academic preparation, we can then look at outcomes. So because we are able to, the National Student Clearinghouse tells us not only about enrollment, but also about graduation. That's really the two statistics that we get from them. So we're able to tell you exactly how many of the students that graduated in a certain year, that enrolled from a certain year, how many graduated within a certain amount of time. Okay? And then we can break that down further by institution type, when they got it, when they obtained a first degree, and so on. So that is an extremely quick overview of Edwin. I've done this presentation in a couple hours before. I wanted to, and we're just about back on track in terms of time. So what I'm happy to do now is to entertain questions that you have about access to the data. Oh, let me just, before I do that, I do have copies of our research guide here. So this gets into even more detail about all of the data that we have and how you can get access to that data, both from the researcher perspective. Districts don't need to go through the research process. You just need to be able to, you can almost grant yourself access to a lot of these data. So I have plenty of these, happy to hand them out at the end of the presentation. But Chad, if it's all right, I think we'll just go right into questions, if that's okay with you. Please.
Could you maybe show the DART data as well, then while you're getting that ready, the question I've been waiting a month to ask you, and I've told everyone I'm going to see him, I'm going to ask him. So now's my chance. Can we get as we look at the college retention data, are we able to disaggregate that by, say, disability and some of these other areas? Is that possible? I'm not seeing how we can do it. Is it something in addition to DART, or is it in DART?
It's well, I'm sorry, are you from a district or a researcher? Researcher, okay.
But so I'm working with the district. So.
Okay, so the district has access to that data for the college enrollment. On the college enrollment side, all that data is filterable within Edwin Analytics. There's just the question of whether you can drill down to the student level or not. But it's all filterable for different subgroups within Edwin Analytics.
It's just not on the full public end.
That's correct.
Thank you.
The college enrollment piece is available, whether or not about graduates attending higher education, that is available to the public by subgroup. Okay? That's on profiles, and I can show you that in a second. So which one would I do it? Do I do the MAC one? This may or may not work. We'll see. So while this is thinking, maybe. Can I take another question, please, sir?
Sure. My question is about variable list.
Sure.
I wouldn't need to get necessarily to go through the process of asking the district for data if I knew, well, asking for access to the data if I knew what variables I needed, because then I could just say, yesterday we were discussing roles, our roles in these projects, and the school principal indicated that he could easily provide any data, and he said that, and I was psyched that I was able to learn about Edwin today. So they said any data that you need, we can use as a team.
Right.
So I'm excited about that. The question is, I guess, could I get a list of variables, or do you have a sort of like a code book variable list across all these databases?
Absolutely. They're available on our website. If you go on to if you just type in SIMS or EPUMs into the search engine, it'll take you to the data dictionaries that are available on the website.
So I'm sorry, I was handing that.
Sorry, if you just type, I mean, I'm going to assume this will work. Hopefully it does. They're available on my staff's website. If you type in SIMS or EPUMs into our search engine, I'm going to assume that it'll probably come pretty close to the handbook.
So the handbook that you're giving out has a list of...
No. Into the when I say handbook, I mean our data dictionaries.
Data dictionary?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm looking for.
Yes. So if you type SIMS into our into our search engine. Hopefully it'll take you to that data handbook.
I think everyone's doing that right now.
Yeah. So let me just show you real quickly. So this is the success after high school DART. And this is going to challenge me to use a Mac. Any volunteers? Salem. There we go. So now, how do I do this? Is like the two-finger thing. You go like, yeah. There we go.
All the way down. Yep, there it is.
Yeah. Anybody like to be compare yourself to? Let me guess, it's a Z.
Who else?
No.
Brockton. There it is.
Brockton.
That's right.
So,
Me too.
how do I? Right. So here, I'm just trying to see. How do I? Where's that button? This thing? No. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you'll see here the way that DART works, and everybody just saw what I did. Is you can pick a school and then pick a comparable school, and it gives you a list of schools here, and here's the Salem High, Brockton High, and then the gray is the state line. Okay, it has, this is, for example, this is just high school indicators. It might look at, this is looking at attendance data. But then if you click through all the different tabs here, you can look at the comparison schools, the percentage of ninth grade students completing and passing all courses, the percentage of grade 12 students with a full year of math, science technology, for example. Okay, high school performance here. You can look at the MCAS data comparing the two schools. Post-secondary outcomes. And here you can look at the progression through degree completion. You can look at enrollment and so on and so forth. So,
Can you just pause on the completion, that graph?
Sure. Going up a little bit. So, is there a way I can get rid of all this? But anyway. So, Emma, here.
It's a great way of showing, helping the school and school counselors get a sense of
Yep.
how the school's doing. And it's a nice way of getting the conversation going. So a lot of groups have talked about ILPs, for example. And in the Reach Higher work that Tim Poynton and I have been involved in, this has been the graph that we think schools should start with, and helping to have the conversation around what is that about. So it's right there, easy to get, easy to transfer.
Yep. Other questions, please.
Can you link the plans of high school graduate survey data to the individual student? And also, can you give us a sense of when you get the update to the NSC data? So when would you get the data for those kids who enroll this next fall?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the first question is yes. The plans of high school grads data are collected through SIMS. So it's connected to the student identifier, just like all the rest of our data are. I don't think we collect any data anymore that aren't connected to our identifier. So, and then the schedule for the National Student Clearinghouse. So this is an interesting one. Generally, we collect it in February. We input our data in February. So we just put in on the class of 2000 and the full class of 2013, and we also put in the 2014 grads. But when we report out by 16 months, we'd only, right now we'd be reporting on the class of 2013. Okay? So here's the deal with the National Student Clearinghouse. Is there anybody from the National Student Clearinghouse here? No, okay, good. They're in the enviable position of being the only game in town. And the data do not come for free. So we have to be really judicious about our data uploads and how many students we can put in and so on and so forth. But that's generally the schedule that we keep. Please, that light is really bright, so I can't see. I can see a hand. That's about it.
I had a question. When you're talking about the percentage of students that take remedial courses at Mass Public Institutions, can you just define for me what a remedial class is?
Yes, non-credit bearing.
And it's just non-credit bearing.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Please. Oh, sorry, I think there's one right, she has, I think, right here.
I'll pass it down. I would like to know if you track dual enrollment data, either participation, course completion, GPA, anything like that.
The answer is yes, we do, because we can match our data with the Department of Higher Education to get kids that are dual enrolled.
I'm sorry, I'm also going to ask a question on the post-secondary.
Sure.
Are we able to, at some point, to get data on what track those students are on? If they're taking, like, biochemistry or something like that?
At the post-secondary level. So that's not something that we have available at the moment. We haven't gotten, in our initial foray was looking at enrollment, remediation, completion. But again, I think as this gets deeper and deeper, we'll start to look at both linking both preparation with course taking at the post-secondary level and success at the post-secondary level. But that's not something that we've necessarily created reports for yet.
And just
Please.
a quick note for everyone as we go to the next question. Jonathan Keller, who was pointed out is in the audience, he's going to be in a panel this afternoon and can talk a little bit about what the Department of Higher Ed is doing on data for folks.
Sorry, I have a question on the clearinghouse data too. You mentioned that it would be available soon. I'm wondering if you could quantify that.
Yep. So, like I said, we are generally what my staff does is give data to the clearinghouse. We aim for the middle of February, and we aim for production in mid-April of every year. That's sort of the cycle we try to be on.
So, sorry, student level data will be available through Edwin to districts.
Sorry, no. So that is the aggregate level data that we've put on. We are planning to enable the student level access to districts right now is not available. That is in the current iteration of work that is being done on Edwin. And those are all the student level access for districts for enrollment purposes and post-secondary is scheduled to be made available in May to school districts. Dave.
Just to follow up on that one, Rob. So it seems like your plans are to make the, just to follow up on that question with respect to the clearinghouse data.
Yeah.
It sounds like your plans are to make the student level data available through Edwin Analytics by sort of clicking on that number 45 and getting the list of kids.
Correct.
Out in Worcester, we also purchase, through the clearinghouse, the student level data file. I'd be looking for the complete data file. They are the only game in town.
Yeah.
And so you guys are paying for the data. We're also paying for the data. It would be great if we were only paying them once.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is kind of where I was going with my comment about the National Student Clearinghouse. So in my discussions with them, they have made a difference between clicking on a number and showing a list of students. They have differentiated between that and me splitting up a file and providing it to school districts. And from their perspective, from a business sense, I can understand why. But that they have made that distinction and not allowed me to, they consider the latter to be a redisclosure of the data as opposed to me just providing a list of students.
Okay, so we got to keep paying that bill. My second question pertains to the Massachusetts public institutions.
Sure.
And when you said there are no plans or you're still working to get that student level data out,
Yep.
Were you talking about researchers or are you talking about school districts as well or both?
So we have made, I was primarily talking about school districts. Okay. We do have a process set up by which we are releasing a combined data set to researchers from the Department of Higher Education and the ESE. I would say though, then we've worked collaboratively with our friends at DHE to come up with that process, that we are a lot more stringent on that research proposal process than we are on just looking at ESE data. But something that we would at least listen to. But in terms of the data for districts, that's what we're still working on, trying to come to an agreement on providing that data to districts. Please.
I'm going to guess this is out of the question, but
nothing's ever out of the question.
Right. So there's a lot of talk about post-secondary outcomes. How about career outcomes? So has there ever been any thought about the communication of the DESE system with the Department of Revenue's wage matching system, or
Yep.
so.
Yeah. So we are in conversations with DOR about doing so. Our adult ed system right now does wage matching with the Department of Revenue. So we're in conversations. We're doing that. We're also in conversations, I guess it's probably under the same umbrella with the Executive Office of Labor, Workforce, and Development. Is that the right acronym?
Yeah.
So we are in conversations with them also and trying to do that. I will say that we've been working on that for a little while, and it's just a matter of combining the data systems and coming to an agreement to be able to do so, and within the priorities of both agencies. But that's conversations that we're actively having.
Thank you.
Please.
Maybe the questions are being asked. Are you able to track the high school students who are eligible for admissions to a four-year university versus a community college?
So we are, the answer is yes. We are able to track students, and by eligibility, do you mean whether or not they were accepted? I'm sorry, can you, maybe I just need you to elaborate a second.
In other words, admissions, that they've completed whatever requirements between freshman and senior year to apply to Boston University versus not having the academic preparation that they have to attend a community college.
Okay, so we do collect, obviously, students that have received a Massachusetts public diploma, high school diploma, right? And we have the course taking information. So I think we could get at any question that you might have in that regard through the combination of those two things, along with meeting the competency determination of meeting a requisite score on the state assessment. Any other questions? So if I may, since I'm here, just real quickly, just to be able to show you the data that are publicly available. And if you go to our school and district profiles, this is kind of the screenshot that I showed you before. And over here, yeah, how do I get over there? This is not going to be. All right, let's do it this way. So the quicker way to do this would have been to go the other way, to that long list of statewide reports that are available. But if we go here and go to students, so you are able to see graduates attending higher ed. If you look here, okay, we provide all the data here on the different subgroups, how many are attending a college, what type of post-secondary type it is. You can filter this by any subgroup. You can look at it by all post-secondary or just by Massachusetts colleges and universities, or look at out of state. And if you go to that larger statewide report, which I couldn't get over to, you can get all schools and districts for any years that we have by any subgroup you could possibly think of, all downloadable into Excel for you. All right, other questions? Okay. So going, if I can figure out how to go back here. There we go. My contact information is there. I think I've given Chad this presentation so that I think he's gonna be available to people at any point. So absent of any other questions, I appreciate the time. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. I have copies of the researcher guide here that I'll leave somewhere.
You can leave them there.
Leave them there. And people can get a hold of them. Again, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Rob, thank you.